A very good evening to you, dear friends. Make yourselves comfortable. We're delighted to have you with us for today's webinar. We are going to explore a fascinating topic that I believe will resonate deeply with many of you. Today we are going to discuss Kriya Yoga. We are going to talk about Vastu. We'll find the reason why negative astrological predictions do not materialize. And most importantly, we'll delve into the topic of karma and how we can improve it. It's my pleasure to introduce a truly remarkable guest. Master Imram is with us today. I believe he hardly needs an introduction. After all, you're here for him. He is well known to many. My name is Yulia Morozova, and I am a Vastu doctor. Many members of our team are also here with us today, working behind the scenes to bring you this fascinating broadcast. Joining us is Nikita, who will be our host. Unfortunately, you can't see him because he is the off-camera spokesman. He has been gathering the many questions you've sent us throughout the week. We've taken our time to carefully select the most interesting, pressing, and important questions, and we are going to address them today. We'll do our best to address those pressing topics that matter to you the most. I'd like to take a moment to clarify a few organizational details, explaining why we chose to host this webinar and what brought us all together today. It's because Master Imram and I realized long ago that Kriya practice combines beautifully with Vastu principles. These two practices function in perfect synergy, each serving as a powerful tool that supports and amplifies the other. The Vedic astrology is another fascinating tool at our disposal. While it stands somewhat apart, it can still offer benefits or sometimes cause harm. These are the topics we'll be discussing today, so just sit back and get ready for what's ahead. Nikita, feel free to ask the questions whenever you're ready. What were the most important and pressing questions we received?
Hello, everyone. I'll begin asking questions in just a little while. In the meantime, Yulia, could you please introduce Imram and share more about him with us?
As I've already mentioned, Imram is a Kriya Yoga practitioner. I believe that since most of you are here to hear Imram speak, he truly needs no further introduction. Imram, could you perhaps share a few words about your path? How did your Kriya journey begin?
A few words? It's a journey without a path.
All right, perhaps a little more.
Greetings to everyone, and thank you for coming together. This is truly significant. Because we're not talking about me or my path today. We're talking about all of us, people genuinely committed to self-improvement. I always say that the greatest thing we can do for ourselves is to create our own inner laboratory. Doctors of true sciences, like Yulia Morozova and her team, assist us in perfecting our lives by offering complementary knowledge that brings harmony to both our external surroundings and inner world. Regarding Kriya Yoga, I am sure many people here already know what it is. It is a science, not a religion. However, it encompasses what could be termed religious dogmas in the best sense of the word. Because whether we want it or not, we discuss spiritual development referring to divinity that resides within each individual. And the higher aspect of divinity, I believe, is an integral part of Vastu. I am smoothly transitioning to our main topic. Why did I agree to this meeting? Because it is essential to bring together the aspects of life that everyone is familiar with, the ones many pursue in one way or another, as astrology has become quite popular recently. The concept of Vastu, an element of the global Vedic worldview, holds great significance. All of this contributes to our growth, making it impossible to disregard these principles. Yet inner work remains paramount. For example, I spent many years living in conditions where meditating was nearly impossible.
I had no physical opportunity or quiet corner for meditation. Vastu was completely out of the question back then. Naturally, a tremendous amount of spiritual energy was expended, driven by sheer will, to overcome many challenges. Had we known Morozova back then, everything would have been entirely different. In those days, we couldn't rely on the internet or telephones in our efforts towards development. At that time, Morozova was not familiar with Vastu, so she would not have been very helpful. At that time, Morozova didn't know us, so there was simply no opportunity. May I ask Yulia a question? Yulia, how long have you been studying Vastu? I've been studying Vastu for over 10 years now. It all started unexpectedly, as I initially worked as an interpreter for Dr. Sahasrabudha, an internationally renowned Vastu master. At first, I was simply doing my job and didn't really explore the subject. Of course, I grasped the essence, but I never imagined I would pursue it seriously. Eventually, it captivated me, and before long, I realized I couldn't imagine my life without Vastu. And of course, astrology, which truly complements Vastu. All right, here's a general question. In your view, how are these two sciences connected from different perspectives? How are Vastu and Kriya connected?
Если говорить о том, что из себя представляет ведическое знание, я его называю крия, это на самом деле ведическое знание, то...
When it comes to Vedic knowledge, the knowledge I refer to as Kriya.
Знание космического вот этого всего, да?
One key aspect stands out within this vast cosmic reservoir of wisdom, the organization of space.
То направление, которое называется организация пространства.
People often seek my advice on how to create a meditation space that supports their practice. First of all, this involves Vastu principles. You should know which side to face and be aware of the layout of the place you are in. Later, I'll go into greater detail about how inner Vastu works. The Vedas naturally focus on ensuring the proper spatial arrangements. All temples built hundreds of thousands of years ago were designed in accordance with Vastu principles. Why is this important? Because everything in space must resonate with the rhythms of the universe, figuratively speaking. These are very subtle processes that mustn't be overlooked. There is plenty of evidence of their life-changing effects, of which you are aware, that take place when everything is harmoniously aligned. Many people suffer from health issues and failures throughout their lives only because they don't follow Vastu principles. Let me remind you the core fundamental principle of Vastu. As in the macrocosm, so in the microcosm. We can interpret this principle at different levels. On the one hand, the macrocosm can represent the universe, the cosmos. And the microcosm is the home we live in, our personal space where most of our life takes place. On the other hand, if we take a step down to the next level, we could say our home, the surrounding space, is the macrocosm, while our body is the microcosm. For instance, Kriya practices that focus on the work with the body, like pranayamas or other techniques, play a role in transforming our inner Vastu. After all, the body is an external manifestation. Of all bodies that we might have, the physical one is the densest. I see deep connections here. When we integrate Kriya with Vastu corrections, we simultaneously refine our subtle bodies, the dense physical body, and the macrocosm around us, the surrounding space. As a result, we can experience profound transformations in a relatively short time. There's no need to wait 20 or 30 years to see the effects. That's the beauty of it. You don't have to waste unnecessary energy on compensating for imbalances either. For example, a person may be practicing, but still struggle to achieve a meditative state. It just doesn't flow, and instead the mind becomes increasingly cluttered. This is often the result of a disharmonious space. Something is obstructing the flow. Sometimes even something as seemingly minor as a poorly placed mat can be an obstacle, generating disruptive vibrations. Upon coming home, one can feel uncomfortable if the space is in disarray. As simple as that. Seeing the mess creates a sense of unease. On the one hand, one could argue it's an attachment to be overcome in order to become more spiritual, and that's understandable. However, these things play a role in harmonizing the space. When everything is tidy and clean, there's a profound sense of harmony. By the way, Sai Baba once said, "Keep your homes clean." It refers to both micro and macro levels, whether it's a house, a flat, or just a room. When it's clean, even the deities in the corners and the elemental spirits feel comfortable. That's when inner harmony begins to emerge, as the person feels at ease within that space. At the initial stages, this is particularly important. I know there are people who can close their eyes and instantly immerse themselves in meditation, regardless of what's happening around them. We could call them advanced meditators. The more such individuals there are, the better. But even they require this type of support, as the compensations they might need to make can deplete additional energy. These energies are essential for us to continue addressing the challenges we face. It's crucial for the home to be clean. Similarly, the house that is our body, the body temple, must also be kept clean. That too is an element of Vastu. I have a related question. You've said that when you first began practicing, you had no dedicated space for meditation and didn't consider Vastu at all. We've received numerous questions asking, in which zone does Master meditate? Which direction does Master face when meditating? My question is a bit different. How did you manage to integrate this practice into your life during times when you had no proper space for it, let alone a supportive environment? It was my life. At the time, the place where I lived lacked proper conditions, as the region and city were caught in two phases of military conflict. We endured a great deal. It was only my determination, a deep understanding of my goal, and my constant effort to work on myself that helped compensate for everything. There were indeed no conditions, not even an opportunity to retreat to a room and sit in solitude. Our room served multiple purposes. It was where I saw patients, meditated, practiced, and where we lived. We even ate in that same room. Today, people live in far more favorable conditions. They have access to knowledge and can rely on your guidance when they need to arrange everything effectively and find the right direction for their journey of self-improvement. They can learn to accelerate these processes, making them supportive rather than energy draining. This is why I am so happy to share the knowledge I have, as it means people won't need to waste vast amounts of effort and resources repeatedly overcoming and searching for these hidden obstacles. In this sense, it is truly a positive development. Great. Friends, thank you so much for your responses. We now have over 3,000 viewers, and I'd like to remind you that today's broadcast focuses on exploring the question, how can you prevent your astrological prediction from manifesting? And my question is, what does astrology have to do with this? Astrology is relevant because when you start exploring esotericism and immerse yourself in its depths, you examine everything, every type of meditation, every technique, every practice. Naturally, along the way, you may encounter an astrologer, and the temptation to seek a prediction arises. As a Vedic astrologer, someone who deeply loves this field and has lived by its wisdom for many years, I've observed that, unfortunately, this science can cause many problems for people when it falls into the wrong hands or is interpreted incorrectly or inaccurately. Personally, I refrained from offering interpretations for others for quite some time, until I had a more comprehensive understanding of the system. We've chosen this topic for a reason. Why won't astrological predictions materialize? We aim to approach this topic with the understanding that both Kriya and Vastu, although this is not always explicitly stated, serve as tools for karma correction. The word karma has become quite popular in recent times, yet I don't believe people truly understand its meaning, how it functions, or concepts like karmic partner or karmic resolution. Yet everyone wants to interact with karma in some way. Everyone wants to take some action. That's why when you consult a Vedic astrologer, they speak to you in the language of karma. They might say, I've examined your chart and I see your karma. Here are the positive aspects, and here are the negative ones. Unfortunately, our minds tend to overlook the positive aspects. All right, I already know I'm talented, I have a job, and there are other positives. But the negative aspects immediately capture our attention, and we focus on them intensely. Through my work, I've learned one crucial lesson. You should never instill fear in people. And I believe all consultants, experts, and those who work in support and assistant roles understand this. In fact, you must avoid even the slightest suggestion of possible negativity, because the human mind is wired to latch onto every detail. She remained silent while reviewing my chart. She furrowed her left brow. Now I'm certain there's a murder or some kind of catastrophe involved. People tend to conjure up the worst scenarios on their own, even in the absence of any comments from the astrologer. Unfortunately, we occasionally come across astrologers who lack competence. Astrology and Vastu are intricately connected. To put it simply, it's like the astrology department sends orders to the Vastu department. A soul is born with a specific horoscope, which holds the blueprint of its karma. But that karma also includes things like what kind of home you'll have, the flaws it might come with, and the events, both good and bad, you'll face while living there. So the astrology department hands over a memo saying, for example, that there's some negativity in your situation, and you've got to go through a tough time or gain a particular experience. Most people see it like this. All right, I figured out my burdens and challenges, so now I'll just suffer through them and live out my karma. But Vastu, much like Kriya, essentially says that suffering isn't necessary. You can correct and improve things. There are special practices and techniques at your disposal. Vastu offers corrections. Kriya offers 42 Kriyas, for example, and plenty more. You can practice these, and by doing so, you can harmonize the negative karma that's reflected in your horoscope. It won't manifest, or if it does, it will unfold in a much gentler, easier way. In this sense, a horoscope is not a fixed destiny. It's more like a route chart. That's why it's called a natal chart. It helps you navigate around sharp corners or avoid some of what is preordained in it. But this requires understanding. Unfortunately, many esoteric practitioners, as a generalization, lack an understanding of this system and fail to realize how flexible the entire framework is. In other words, our immediate future is very subtle, and we have the power to change it. And here's the following question. Imram, what are your thoughts and personal experiences on this subject?
To begin with, I totally agree with you. This is essentially the case. I would like to look at it from a higher perspective, so that the origins of everything become more apparent. After all, astrology belongs to the astral plane, but in reality, there are even higher levels of existence. We are speaking of the causal plane, the realm where ideas truly originate. The causal plane governs the mental plane, and the mental plane in turn governs the astral plane, the domain of our astral bodies. Here the stars come into effect, offering a wealth of possibilities, variations, and influences. As I have already mentioned, there are a certain number of mechanical forces that impact a person's consciousness and their journey of ascension. As earthly beings inhabiting Mrityu Loka, the physical realm, we are subject to no fewer than 48 mechanical laws that shape our existence. I'll refrain from listing them now, but rest assured they are very much present. These are the laws of Earth. They also include social laws as evidenced by current events. To transcend this, we need specialized knowledge and sufficient energy to overcome these laws and ascend to the realm of 24 laws. That is to reduce 48 by 24, discarding 24. Thus, 24 represents the level of contemplation for an individual. In other words, 48 earthly laws govern the ordinary person with an average mind, someone who simply lives without awareness of these influences.
However, when a person begins to contemplate, reflect, and analyze their life, they strive to transcend these laws by applying Vastu or other specific methods, like upayas or other mechanisms, for example, Kriya or Yoga in general. These practices gradually harmonize their environment, and they attain the level of 24. This is exactly the level of astrology linked with our solar system. Are they interlinked? Yes, they are, naturally. Our bodies incorporate all the planets. All components of the planets, all the elements, indeed, absolutely everything. In fact, 33 million deities reside within us, with every hierarchical structure present in our bodies. This is an expansive topic. Through dedicated practice, an individual ascends to a higher level of awareness, the one defined by the 12 earthly laws. Here, the influence of the solar system comes under one's control. What does this mean? Essentially, these practices allow one to transcend the karmic bonds associated with our solar system, ultimately enabling the individual to resonate harmoniously with all the planets. At this stage, astrology alters its approach towards a person. We understand, for instance, that when a person is born under an unfavorable astrological influence, it is not their fixed destiny. You yourself have noted this. What is the purpose of understanding one's unfavorable astrological influences? To provide the opportunity for correction. After all, what is the point of punishment if we are unable to recognize and rectify our faults? But when an individual becomes aware of their karma and, through sincere repentance, actively works towards rectifying it, their karmic burden is eased by at least 20 to 30%, or entirely canceled. After all, there is no point in karmic punishment when a person has taken the next steps on their path, fully acknowledged and accepted everything, and is moving forward. Skipping ahead, I can reveal to those who fear karma, you have the right to ask the Absolute, God, or whatever name you choose, to grant you time to attain your higher purpose. And this request will not be denied. The opportunity will always be given. But once you get this opportunity, be sure to dedicate the allocated time to achieving your goal. Otherwise, things might get worse. I have witnessed certain cases. Someone is destined to leave this life due to karma. But they appeal to God. I don't want to leave. I've realized everything. I won't do it again. Allow me another opportunity. And they are granted 20 years. For several years, however, they don't take any action. They just live on, their commitment forgotten. One day they are hit by a car. That's it. Their karma swiftly catches up with them. Or they might be diagnosed with a serious illness and pass away. Such extreme cases serve to vividly illustrate that people are always given an opportunity. Now I'll move on to what I intended to start with. It is crucial to understand that this world is woven from the very fabric of Brahman, indeed from Brahman himself. Above Brahman lies the Absolute. To keep things simple, I will just say that there is a creator of creation, the Absolute Creator. From himself, he begets Prakriti, the primal element, which manifests as the source from which the three gunas emerge: Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. From these three gunas, 5 types of energy are generated, which together form our universe. This encompasses all the planets, astrology, and everything else. People currently residing in Mrityu Loka, unaware of their divine nature, have come directly from the Absolute. Along the way, they acquired bodies, possibly beginning in the spiritual causal plane before manifesting in a physical form. It is this identification with the physical body that gives rise to their heavy karma. If life treats someone well, it doesn't necessarily mean that everything is fine for them. Unfortunately, even if they appear to be living well but are gripped by constant fear, can this be truly called a life? Why do they fear? Because there is only one form of suffering, and it stems from identification with the body.
Why do we experience problems in life? Because for some reason, prana, apana, vyana, udana, samana, our 5 energies, sometimes spontaneously manifest in a rather odd manner.
In an unpredictable manner.
In an unpredictable manner, yes. And an individual faces unforeseen events that they have to sort out. On the one hand, we say that everything is predestined. Yes, people are born with a certain karma and astrological influences. Yulia Morozova states, look, this is not final, you can change everything. How is it possible? Everything is already very bad. What should I do? Tell me, what should I do? Yulia Morozova advises, let's start by harmonizing the space that surrounds you. But it will take a lot of time. I can't afford it. Why do people behave like this? Because the human mind and ego are influenced by certain programs. These programs are inherent within us. To rewrite these programs, it's crucial to take control of prana.
And to control prana, one should meditate.
Of course. To begin meditating, one should learn to harmonize their external and internal space and take control over their mind that obstinately indulges in negative thinking. Working with the mind is paramount. Working with the head. This is essentially the case. And then you tell this person, look, I know the way. They reply, oh, do you? Yes, I know the way. And what should I do? Start with this, this, and this. First, cultivate positive thinking. And the energies will begin to work in a different way. We live in a state of continuous conflict. Speaking about ordinary people, more often than not, their right and left brains fail to reach an agreement. Our interhemispheric connections are extremely strained by this discord. Why does it work this way? Imagine that everything is energy. Absolutely everything is energy. And wherever your consciousness is focused, a particle appears. If you think negatively about some aspects of your life, God forbid, this negativity manifests. Why? Because essentially, everything is a wave, everything is light. And if we generate a thought pattern and focus our attention on it, this light begins to crystallize that thought pattern. In places that are highly saturated with pure energy, everything happens very fast. Power places accelerate processes. There, your mindset is crucial. You should be very careful about your thoughts in these places. It is far better to remain in a state of emptiness for all energies to find their calm. Our mental plane is highly active, which is why meditation is essentially the art of focusing our attention. First of all, on the primary source, the source of the 3 gunas, Rajas, Sattva, and Tamas. They represent Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. They are them. We perceive them as gods, but man is capable of transcending this perception. What I am sharing with you may seem blasphemous to religiously inclined people, but this is the truth. Satya Sai Baba spoke of this. Jesus, as an avatar, spoke of this. And Baba also taught this, Babaji. I'm simply echoing an idea shared by all the greatest teachers and masters. We are the primary source. We emerged from the primary source before coming here. Everything is recorded within us and for us. But the choice is ours. We can choose to fear karma, or we can choose to work on resolving karma, which is a higher level. Or we can develop awareness of being demigods with an opportunity for realization, which is an even higher level. It all depends on one's level of consciousness and assemblage point, the point of their focus. This is why I often destroy concepts to some extent. This is my duty. When I notice someone falling into oblivion, I destroy these concepts. To build a harmonious edifice of our life, we must first lay a solid foundation and take every necessary step to ensure its stability. What is that foundation? The understanding of our true nature and how we function. This is the correct attitude towards everything. It is crucial in today's world to recognize that Kriya means action. Without action, without focusing on the higher, it becomes difficult to comprehend anything. It is the mental energy linked to our spirit and the essence of who we are that propels us forward in our journey of self-development.
Too often, people find themselves following the wrong guides. They are eager and dedicated, but fail to think or reflect properly. Back in their days, the Roriks used to say, "Read less, think more." What does it mean? As you read something and begin to understand it, take time to think about it and experience it. For instance, when Yogananda worked on the Bhagavad Gita, he would take individual slokas and meditate on them. He would stay in an altered state of consciousness for several days, meditating, and only then would he offer his commentary. As we live, what can we truly do for ourselves? People say they want to live, yet many fear karma. Then what do they live for if they fear it? Karma is the driving force that guides us to shape our lives correctly. Without it, gaining experience would be impossible. We fear negative karma, but from a divine viewpoint, nothing is inherently negative. No one is ever given challenges that are beyond their abilities. People fear death. Ultimately, the fear of karma, like many other fears, is rooted in the fear of death. But if you know what death is and realize that it doesn't exist, your fears dissolve. Today, who can realize that death doesn't exist? A meditator. We experience death every night, but we don't worry about it. There is nothing there. There is only the one who witnesses this all. But we have no connection with them due to our lack of awareness. I refer to humanity in general. Therefore, we need to meditate to normalize all processes. We possess knowledge that can guide us on this path. We have determination. Determination backed by knowledge leads to realization. Let me sum it up. I've been speaking a lot and there are many questions. I also have some ideas that I'd like to share. The Absolute. Prakriti, from which everything emerges. The primordial energy, let's call it Adi Shakti. The three gunas, Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. We focus on Sattva. By focusing on Sattva, which is done right here, our five energies align positively. In Kriya Yoga, the center of concentration is the divine cave. By focusing on it, we direct our attention towards the Absolute. However, this is a vast subject. My apologies for speaking so much. It was a brief summary, very brief. As you spoke, an example came to mind that perfectly illustrates this. I'll share it briefly. When people begin to study astrology, they generally understand that Saturn is considered bad, loosely speaking, and linked to negative karma. Naturally, they become fearful. The first questions from students are always, where is Saturn in my chart? How will it punish me? It will bring difficulties in this house and problems in that one. In this sign, it will create issues with real estate, and in that sign, it will cause problems with my personal life. Their focus is entirely on the negative consequences they believe Saturn will bring. Then they learn about karmic knots, namely Rahu and Ketu, which also occupy their specific positions in the horoscope, bringing their own karmic challenges. In the first year of studying astrology, around 90% of people become stressed by the awareness of this negative karma and the associated punishments. That's why I completely understand what you're talking about. I see it regularly. Very often students ask, Yulia, in which house should Saturn be placed to avoid harm, or at least to reduce the blows of the bamboo stick on our heads? I reply, guys, if you want to avoid harm from Saturn, it shouldn't be in your horoscope at all. When you incarnate on higher planes, there will be no Saturn, no Rahu, no Ketu, only uplifting, joyful energies. However, when we incarnate here in Mritu Loka, a name revealed to us for a reason, it means that death and the transition between dimensions are inevitable. And your horoscope will inevitably include Saturn, Ketu, and Rahu. But you must not fear them. Although these planets may seem like villains, if we consider them as characters, their purpose is ultimately divine, as they guide you on the path to fulfilling your karma. It might be challenging, perhaps even tough, but it is precisely these planets that drive people into meditation, encourage them to pursue spiritual practices, study the Vedas, seek ways to help themselves, and many succeed. So never fear these negative planets. They are in fact our best teachers. Friends, I'd like to remind you that 4,000 people are already watching us on YouTube, and many questions have been asked in both the chat and the questionnaire we sent you earlier. We'll begin addressing the most interesting questions now. A quick note, the questions you sent in advance have been grouped together, as many were similar, so we'll focus on answering the most common ones. Let's start with the simplest question we've been asked. Yulia and Imram, where might we have the chance to see you in person soon? Most likely in the streets of Moscow. So you actually walk down the streets not levitating above them? Yes, we walk, and sometimes people approach us with questions. I always say that when people sit down to meditate and close their eyes, even if they simply think, let's meditate together, whether addressing Imram or anyone else, since we always meditate together, this holds a far greater significance than any external interaction. External communication is maya, an illusion. But when we close our eyes and enter a state of peace and inner silence, we are genuinely together, genuinely connected. So let's meditate together. I'd like to share a few words about the effects of meditation. People who attended Imram's seminars often spoke to me about their experiences, and later I had the opportunity to witness them firsthand. They described them like this: 1,000 people sitting side by side, meditating with their eyes closed, sensing each other's presence. But as you close your eyes and enter a meditative state, you are alone. There is no one but yourself. This is a unique effect of meditation that reveals our deep interconnectedness through the heart. Yet at the same time you are aware of being alone. You no longer feel the presence of those around you, and no one distracts you, and you dive deeper and deeper into the practice. This is a remarkable phenomenon. The phenomenon of oneness. There is only one, Odin. Actually, there's no one else. Good. Guys, here's another question, though it's probably more for Dr. Yulia. People are asking, what's the difference between Vastu and Feng Shui? I know it's a common question. It comes up a lot, and virtually every other person here is asking it. Well, to answer briefly and clearly for everyone, look, these sciences originate from different countries and cultures, each with distinct mentalities and objectives. From my perspective, in today's world, Feng Shui focuses on the finer aspects, like adjusting the position of an air conditioner or a TV. It's concerned with tiny micro-elements like arrangement of furniture. Vastu operates on a more global scale. Both sciences are rooted in the 5 great elements. However, Feng Shui was originally developed as a method to enhance human life, helping people increase their earnings and improve their overall well-being. Vastu, on the other hand, was passed down by the wise rishis to protect individuals from premature death and shield them from the adverse effects of planetary transits, which, incidentally, are 65 to 70% negative. When students first learn about this, they often ask, is there anything positive at all? I respond, no. In the horoscope, around 70% of planetary transits bring negative karma, because we are here to work through these challenges. If everything were perfect, there'd be nothing for us to do here. Vastu is primarily about protection. And then, as a secondary effect, it brings all the same benefits: spiritual growth, creativity, financial abundance, and personal life. You get it all, yet it comes as a byproduct. The primary goal is, however, timely protection. Another key difference is that Feng Shui largely relies on the system of flying stars that function much like planetary transits in the sky, changing every year. What's interesting is that people would meticulously arrange everything according to Feng Shui. But after a year, they would come back and say, well, we need to rearrange things. The stars have shifted. Vastu, in contrast, is more stable and monumental. It's less influenced by the external transits and instead rooted in the unchanging system of elements, their alignment with the cardinal directions and planets. That's why in Vastu, the approach is to correctly set everything up once, and it will stand the test of time. Rituals might be needed to recharge the energy, but there's no need in rearrangements. That's a brief answer. Great, thank you. We'll be shifting topics from time to time, covering questions about Vastu, Kriya, and even touching on astrology and astronomy as well. Imram, here's a question for you. How can I spark interest in Kriya in my husband and children? Could you share your experience? First of all, you should be a prominent example for them. If a man sees and feels the harmony radiating from his wife, sensing that she is neither tense nor anxious, and if her inner life vibrates with tranquility, spreading these calming vibrations to her husband and children, he will naturally be encouraged. This is an approach we find in Vastu. If you wish to follow Feng Shui principles, you can leave books on yoga such as Autobiography of a Yogi, or The Search for Truth, or other books on the coffee table. Your husband will occasionally pick it up, glance at it, put it back down, saying, "Not for me yet." When you're not around, he'll read a little more. Eventually, there may come a moment when he says, "You're doing it wrong, I know how to do it." This is all about inner attitude. If family members see that a man or a woman practices Kriya, thus demonstrating their sincere service to the family in terms of harmony, goodness, cooking, and so on, everything is certain to unfold as it should. Allow time for yourself and space to mature. When practicing, you can send sincere vibrations of tranquility and love to your loved ones. This is very important. When you meditate, even your neighbors engage in passive practice. This is really so.
Great. So, in a way, a family practicing Kriya can enhance the well-being of all the neighboring apartments.
Yes, of course, absolutely. It's a kind of Wi-Fi. Great. Yulia, the next question is for you. Does the absence of one's own home suggest the presence of bad karma?
No, it simply indicates that certain planets with negative influences
May be in the fourth house of your horoscope, which governs real estate, and it can cause delays or obstacles.
From a Vastu perspective, owning a home may not be destined until a certain time has passed, after which you can create a space in alignment with Vastu. Until then, you might move from one rented apartment to another, or relocate from city to city for work. There are various scenarios. It's like a lesson or challenge that you must face. Once you've successfully worked through it, the obstacles will be removed. If I correctly understand the question, the astrological blockages will likely be cleared by the age of 40. If you were to conduct a statistical survey among those who've experienced housing difficulties, many would tell you, "At 40, I bought a home. I hadn't had the chance to buy one before." This is because the influence of certain planets, which had been causing delays, naturally weakens with time. So there's always a chance.
I'll add a few words. I think that all these seemingly negative planetary alignments and positions that are believed to hinder normal living are actually intended for people's benefit. For example, someone may not have a possibility to buy their own apartment before the age of 40, but if they find the means to buy it, something unforeseen could happen there. Therefore, the keepers, the masters of destinies, oversee these processes. Everything is designed with great harmony. In this regard, the universe operates with high precision, much like clockwork. Therefore, it's best to trust these processes. When we seek changes, we transcend them, gain awareness, and move forward. Otherwise, we'll have to face the outcomes as they are. I believe this is ultimately very positive. It's dharma. Karma and dharma go hand in hand. Astrology and the entire system of Vastu, which encompasses astrology, or vice versa, are aspects of dharma through which evolution unfolds in a step-by-step spiraling progression, with each step bringing the possibility of deeper realizations. I believe everything happens for the greater good. If you want to accelerate or transform the process, you can embark on the path of Kriya. Pay attention to the sound combination kr. It is common to words like karma, Kriya, and Krishna.
Krishna, yes.
Yes, as well as Christ. Basically, this root is a Sanskrit bija, signifying a specific state or form of stability. As a result, Kriya, as an action, enables the acceleration of processes, or even their complete transformation. This is why it has become so popular.
There are times when one meditates with the goal of obtaining an apartment, only to reach the realization that they don't really want this apartment, nor do they need it. What they truly need is something else.
Yes.
I often witness such examples.
Many people have dreamed of owning a car or an apartment, yet when they get it, the joy is fleeting.
Enough for one day.
Yes. These material possessions. And here's a great universal question. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure who the best person to ask is, but it goes like this. Which part of the house is best suitable for Kriya practice? Imram, in which part do you practice? I practice at home. My home is where my body temple is. I have already mentioned that I never had an opportunity to practice properly until recent years. So my family and I practiced wherever we could find this opportunity, in the mountains, on trains, or in aircraft. Here is the body temple. Which part of the house is it? Kriya Yoga practitioners are perfectly aware of where our home is. Our home is within our consciousness. Therefore, you can practice wherever you are. If external conditions are unsuitable, you can rely on your inner state. Your body temple is essentially what you feel, manifested through the I am principle. Here I am, yet it has never been me. I am consciousness. We can focus on the divine cave. This is our head, the Ajna chakra, the entire length of the spine. It can serve as an excellent Vastu. Your consciousness resides within your aligned spine during practice, and from it something else emerges. But my consciousness, which is my inherent nature, the prior consciousness, which is the nature of every one of us, doesn't require any specific place. There is absolutely no need in purposefully doing anything. This is to answer the question about how I meditated. I just knew I had to meditate. That's all. I can say to those interested that, from a Vastu standpoint, the most favorable areas for meditation and practice are the northeast and east. Yes. Ideally, these spaces should also have windows, allowing you to face the energy entry areas, specifically the east or northeast. Some individuals are fortunate enough to have apartments with windows facing northeast. Yet we don't always have the luxury of choice. At times, only a south-facing room is available, and perhaps that's the only option. Therefore, if you happen to lack a room or window facing east, there's no need to worry or feel disheartened. There should be no sense of limitation. Yes, of course. Don't think that only those with eastern-facing windows or rooms are fortunate, as they can achieve results through meditation while others can't. Actually, I agree that meditation can be done anywhere. The east is associated with prana, with the energy of Mars, and the positive energy of fire, which makes east-facing rooms ideal for active techniques and practices that involve movement, such as jumping, running, and leaping. If your practice is more static and measured, the northeast would be a more suitable choice. Anyway, make the most of what you have. Yes, the omnipresent God can be found only in the northeast. That's the area. I'm kidding, of course. He is everywhere, in every place, and therefore time is but an illusion. However, I do fully agree with Yulia, as there are indeed specific power fields and lines, and unfortunately, these circulating horizontal energies do require attention. This is why the north, northeast, and east are significant. For example, Lahiri Mahasaya, the first to introduce Kriya to the world, when it was time for him to depart, turned his body towards the North Star, and left his physical form. There are certain laws at play, and these must be taken into account. Let's delve a little into astrology now. There are quite a few questions surrounding it. Is that all right with you? Yes, of course. Are you ready for everything? We are in. All right, here's a curious question. There are 12 zodiac signs, but why isn't there a sign called Ophiuchus, even though it's frequently mentioned online? Imram, you haven't heard of the zodiac sign? I've heard about it, but I'm actually quite curious too. I believe that Ophiuchus does exist, but it has an ephemeral supplementary meaning, which in my view is most likely applied in karmic medicine. It lies between Capricorn and Scorpio, or more precisely Sagittarius. As far as I know, the 12 zodiac signs were established in ancient Vedic culture long before Ophiuchus was discovered. This is why in the West, some astrologers chose to incorporate it while others did not. Personally, I view this differently. I know that in astrology, beyond the 12 zodiac signs, there are also 27 nakshatras, which represent a deeper, more intricate level. Each nakshatra corresponds to a specific star cluster or constellation. Most people limit their focus to 12 or 13 zodiac signs, but I know there are countless signs. Okay, at least 27. And within each zodiac sign, there are multiple clusters that carry profound energetic significance. Ophiuchus reminds me of the Abhijit Nakshatra that vanished from the sky when Krishna departed from his earthly existence. In ancient times, during a different yuga, There were other nakshatras and star clusters visible in the sky as described in the Vedic tradition. Abhijit was regarded as an angelic nakshatra, thought to guarantee success in any endeavor undertaken during its activity. The most auspicious events were often initiated when it was active. When Krishna departed from his earthly body, he took it with him from the sky, declaring, "I am Abhijit," and vanished with it. However, it still exists. Its position has been identified through astrological calculations. We know its location just as we do with Ophiuchus. Interestingly, their positions roughly coincide. Yes, somewhere between Sagittarius and Capricorn. Fascinating. This alone could be the subject of an entire study. In astrology, there's a belief that people, or souls, incarnating under Abhijit Nakshatra are angelic in nature. They are seen as angels or bodhisattvas, consciously choosing to incarnate in service of others, supporting the evolution of ordinary souls on this planet. So don't view these concepts in isolation. Broaden your perspective and allow for a deeper understanding to emerge. It's best to view nakshatras as constellations, as you've mentioned, and as sequences of events. They represent significant events in the universe. In essence, constellations are arrangements of certain energetic and informational components that influence the course of events in one's life. Naturally, these events align with certain karmic laws and guidance of the karmic council, and they can differ from person to person. The crucial point is that these events are influenced by our mental activity. If we cultivate a positive mindset, life's events will reflect that positivity. We will experience them in a more positive way, of course. Now moving on, there's another question regarding a weak moon in the natal chart. There is someone with a weak moon, and it tends to cast them in the role of a victim. The question arises, what can they do about it? Weak moon. Since ancient times, astrologers have often observed that even the strongest horoscope can be entirely comprised by a single weak moon, capable of undermining all its inherent strengths. On the flip side, if your moon is strong, it can support your entire horoscope and your whole life, even if the other placements are weak or challenging. The moon is like a movie playing out within our minds. It's a lens through which we view the world. This requires profound understanding. Recognize that some people experience life as a tragic comedy, others as a horror film, some as a documentary, or another captivating illusion. We each watch our own version of a movie. If you come to understand that your moon is the projector casting these movies onto the screen of your life, you'll realize that you have the power to put another record on. How does one achieve this? Once you comprehend the rules of the game ceases to hold power over you. Meditation offers the path forward. The moon represents our mind, and the mind finds stillness through practice. It quiets in meditation. If you no longer wish to see yourself as a victim and you've recognized the pattern prevailing in your life, proceed with breathing exercises and other practices. Remind yourself that you are not a victim. You are not the moon. You are far greater than that. Certain planetary positions in our horoscopes act as trigger points, sort of buttons. When pressed, they provoke specific reactions because that's how they were pre-programmed. But this doesn't mean you're bound to respond the same way forever. Working with the moon and harmonizing its influences are achieved through meditation, practices, and breath. You can step out of these patterns whenever you choose. It's not as difficult as it might seem. Let me pose a counter question. Where do the victim and the weak moon disappear to when you sleep? Dreaming of being a perfect creature. Just think about it. That's right, I completely agree with you. We strive for the transformation of consciousness that shapes our decisions. It decides whether it's a victim or something else. But when a person truly awakens from this illusion, known as avidya, from this slumber, they come to realize they are nothing like what they have believed themselves to be. It's fascinating. In this context, meditation is a truly magical tool. Here's another intriguing, provocative question. Let's dive in. It's very much on topic, especially regarding positive thinking and all that. If I live positively and follow moral laws, is that sufficient? Or would I still need to study astrology, Kriya, and other Vedic sciences? Shall I answer? Let's answer together. My karma is worse, so I'll answer. Okay, just kidding. It all comes down to one's life purpose. I always remind you to consider your life purpose, your interests and aspirations. The answer depends on whether your goals are lofty or not so lofty. Many people study Kriya Yoga or astrology. Why? Simply to feel comfortable in this life. But comfort in this world is fleeting, as the sense of comfort is ever-changing. For instance, someone might be used to driving an old car, but once they upgrade to a better one, they wouldn't dream of going back. People readily get used to good things. All problems stem from our identification with the body and seeming comfort. So if you wonder whether it's sufficient to be good and think positively, the answer is no. It's insufficient. Unfortunately, it doesn't function as we expect it to. Positive thinking is an important prerequisite for embarking on the spiritual journey. However, our true spiritual journey begins when we transcend mental processes and attain a state of mental pause. This is where spirituality takes its source, within this deep silence, within this profound darkness, known as Kanashyam. This is Krishna, the one we often speak of, yet often fail to recognize where to find him. When we enter a deep state of peace and quiet, we perceive emptiness beyond our closed eyes, a darkness, a deep blue or black light. This is Krishna himself. Very few people truly understand or recognize this. What to do with this experience is revealed through Kriya Yoga. It is only in this state of peace and quiet that spiritual practice truly begins, and our self-aware nature, the ability to be aware of oneself, begins to awaken. This is why I believe that it's insufficient. That's how I see it. I'll put it this way. No one seeks out an astrologer when everything is going well. No one consults a Vastu expert paying substantial sums and even more for corrections when life is smooth. People probably don't turn to Kriya Yoga as well when their life is wonderful and fulfilling. Up to a certain point that everyone inevitably reaches, though some may never reach it, of course. Before that point, everything is fine. We need nothing. We simply relish life as it is. But eventually a moment will come, and it will come because 70% of transits are tough, our karma is heavy, and our horoscope is challenging. There are no horoscopes without challenges, so it's just a matter of time. That inner feeling that something is wrong, that something is missing, will eventually arise. It could manifest as a desire for a better car, a better job, a better lover, or even juggling multiple cars, lovers, and jobs. This is how the mind works. For a while, we're content with what we have, but eventually we seek more, and then even more. Or perhaps a sudden serious failure, or another tough situation occurs, God forbid, and we find ourselves saying, we need an astrologer, we need meditation, we need Kriya, we need Vastu. If that moment hasn't arrived yet, you can continue enjoying life as it is. But when it does come in the future, you'll know where to go and what to do. Excellent, excellent.